In 1677, a family bought 300 acres of swampy land in London. Today, 348 years later, those same 300 acres are worth billions. While 90% of wealthy families lose everything by the third generation, this family is still collecting rent. Today, I'm breaking down the 9 specific investments that separate old money from everyone else and the one decision that makes all of them work: the war against time. 70% of wealthy families lose everything by the second generation. By the third, 90% are gone. This is the 3-generation curse, and it's a statistical law of financial gravity. The reason is simple. Most people treat wealth like a pile of gold to be spent. Old money treats it like a living thing, a biological organism that must be fed and protected. They think like cathedral builders. Medieval cathedrals took 200 years to build. The architect who laid the foundation died decades before the first spire was raised, but he designed it anyway, knowing his grandchildren would see what he started. That is how old money thinks about wealth. They aren't building for themselves, they're building for people who don't exist yet. Even the Vanderbilts, once the richest family in America, lost it all in 3 generations. At one point, 120 members attended a family reunion, and not one was a millionaire. They started with the assets, but they lacked the rules to keep them. The families that survive, they start with one thing: the land. Oh, level 1, irreplaceable land. Old money doesn't just buy real estate, they buy geographic monopoly. Most investors look for rental yields. Old money looks for land that simply cannot be replicated. Take the Duke of Westminster. His family trust owns the dirt beneath Mayfair and Belgravia in London. These are the most expensive postcodes on earth. When you own the land in a spot that's been the centre of global power for 500 years, you're not a landlord, you're a gatekeeper. Aha! The rule is, never sell. The Grosvenor family utilises a leasehold system. They own the land, but they let other people build the houses. The developers pay the family for the right to build, and when the 99-year lease is up, the house and the land both return to the family. It is a cycle of infinite wealth that compounds every century. They hold through wars, depressions, and market crashes. This ensures that every time the city expands, their net worth goes up. They also control air rights, the legal right to build vertically. They can sell the right to build a skyscraper above their land for hundreds of millions without ever losing a single square inch of the dirt itself. While you won't buy Mayfair tomorrow, you can use their blueprint. Smart investors identify the path of progress, the direction a city is naturally growing, and buy on the outskirts before the sprawl hits. You don't build the city, you just own the only direction it can expand. If that's too slow, real estate investment trusts allow anyone to own a piece of these high-barrier urban monopolies with just a few $100s, but land alone won't feed you during a famine. That's where the second layer comes in, the food monopoly. On level 2, the food monopoly. In 1929, when the market crashed, most people held paper that became worthless, but the DuPont family noticed that their farmland was still produced. The corn still grew, people still had to eat. They used their cash flow from the land to buy neighbouring estates for 20 cents on the dollar, while everyone else was panic selling. Bill Gates is currently the largest private farmland owner in America, with 270,000 acres. But here's the real secret. He isn't just buying dirt, he's buying water rights. In the Western US, water is governed by prior appropriation. It's the first in time, first in right. It means the date you secured your water right determines if you get water during drought. If you own the oldest right on a river, you get 100% of your water, while your neighbour gets 0. The Resnick family in California built a multi-billion-dollar empire by securing these senior rights. They own the water required to grow the crops, making them the ultimate gatekeepers of the caloric supply chain. As aquifers dry up, water rights become more valuable than the land itself. Humans need 2,000 calories a day. You can bet on the next tech trend, or you can bet on biological necessity. Fractional ownership platforms now let people buy into commercial orchards for as little as $15,000, shifting a portfolio from speculative growth to fundamental survival. Owning the food is a defensive win, but owning a piece of every person's daily habit is how you scale. That brings us to the math of the dividend aristocrat. Level 3, renting the global economy. Most people treat the stock market like a casino. Old money treats it like a global utility. They don't want the next viral stock, they want a math problem that's already been solved. This is the power of yield on cost. Let's look at the math that makes dynasties immortal. Imagine you put $10,000 into Coca-Cola in 1980. After decades of stock splits, you'd have roughly 12,500 shares today. In late 2025, Coke paid a dividend of $2.04 per share annually. That means you are receiving $25,500 every single year in cash while you sleep. That is a 255% annual return on your original $10,000 every single year. Your original position is now worth about $875,000, but old money doesn't care about that number. They never sell. They are just collecting rent from everyone on earth who buys a drink. This is the biological organism of wealth in action. The company does the work, the CEO manages the stress, and the family simply collects the tax on global consumption. You can start this today with a Dividend King ETF, companies with 50 plus years of consecutive dividend increase. It's a strategy that ensures income grows faster than inflation without you ever having to lift a finger. Before, dividends are the passive engine, but to really go on the offensive, you need to consolidate the basics of modern life. It's to level 4, boring businesses. The Mars family is famous for chocolate, but their real cash cow is Banfield. They own over 800 veterinary clinics. Why? Because pet care has massive emotional switching costs. If you trust a vet with your dog's life, you aren't going to switch to a competitor just to save $10. This led to the roll-up strategy. Find a fragmented industry with steady demand, buy the best local operator, and then acquire every competitor in the area. Here is how financial engineering works. A single HVAC company might sell for 3 times its annual profit, but if you own 20 of them and centralize the billing and the marketing, the market values the entire group at 10 times profits. You have created value out of thin air simply by providing scale and stability. While private equity targets businesses worth $5 million or more, thousands of owner-operators under $500,000 remain fragmented. The aging baby boomer with no succession plan, or the regional HVAC company that's never been approached. These are the targets. For the dynastic builder, the goal isn't to be a visionary, it's to be a consolidator of things people can't live without. These are the boring businesses that fund the luxury of the next 3 generations. These businesses provide the raw cash, but once you have the cash, you face your biggest competitor, the tax collector. Miami, level 5, trust architecture. When an individual dies, the government can take up to 40% of everything they own. Trust architecture is how old money prevents that. If assets sit in an irrevocable trust, the trust owns them, not the person. Legally, they never enter the taxable estate. The Grosvenor Trust has survived since 1677 because the trust itself never dies. Billionaires use a specific vehicle called a GRAP. Think of it like this. You put $100 million in a trust. The government says pay yourself back at 5%, but if your investments grow at the 15%, that extra 10% goes to your heirs completely tax-free. You're paying the government in small bills while your real fortune compounds in the shadow. The principal stays with the patriarch, but the snowballing growth belongs to the next generation. The big risk here is timing. If the person who set up the trust dies before the term ends, the whole strategy fails and the assets are pulled back into the taxable estate. This is why dynastic planning is a race against time. For many, a simple revocable living trust is the first step. It costs about $2,500 to set up, but it skips the public nightmare of probate. It ensures that assets move to heirs in weeks, not years, and the details of a family's wealth never become a public record. But what if the country itself becomes the problem? That's when wealth has to become portable. Level 6, portable wealth. During the fall of Paris in 1940, a Rothschild cousin fled with a single painting rolled into his coat. That ability to compress millions of dollars into something you could carry across a border became the blueprint for every dynasty's escape plan. Today, that is done through the free port. Only free ports are ultra-secure warehouses in places like Geneva or Luxembourg. They are a legal hack. Art in permanent transit can't be taxed, seized, or even traced. Owners trade $100 million masterpieces inside these vaults without the crates ever moving. It's an insurance policy for the collapse of a nation-state. While art is hard to sell quickly, it holds its value regardless of which government is in power. For those seeking something more accessible, physical gold in private, non-bank storage remains the gold standard for portable, liability-free wealth. It is the only asset that is not someone else's debt. Art is the exotic insurance, but for raw power under the ground, dynasties buy mineral rights. Level 7, mineral rights. Institutional investors often call gold the only asset that isn't someone else's liability, but the elite take that a step further with subsurface rights. In the US, property is owned in layers. You own the surface, but someone else can own what's 500 feet below you. The Bass family in Texas secured mineral rights to land in the Permian Basin in the 1930s. Today, those rights generate massive annual income without them lifting a finger. Smart families buy land where mineral rights are still attacked. They don't care about finding oil today. They're banking on the next 50 years. Whether it's lithium for batteries or natural gas, the person who owns the subsurface rights gets a royalty, usually 12.5 to 25% of everything pulled out. They take no operational risk. They don't pay for the drills, the labor, or the environmental permits. They just take a cut off the top. It is the ultimate passive income. When you buy property in states like Texas or Wyoming, the first thing old money checks isn't the house, it's the mineral deed. They want to own the blood of the earth. Owning the earth is one thing, but owning the connections between people provides the ultimate empire strategy. Level 8, vertical integration. Old money doesn't just buy a business, they buy the entire supply chain. This is how they survive when everyone else goes bankrupt. If a family owns a luxury furniture brand, they don't just buy wood from a supplier, they buy the timber forests and the logistics firms that move the lumber. By owning the raw materials, the processing, and the distribution, they eliminate the middleman costs that eat up profit margin. When global shipping costs triple, the competitor goes bankrupt because they can't afford the freight. The integrated dynasty simply moves their product through their own ships. They want to be the only game in town when everyone else runs out of material. Control of the supply chain makes you resilient to external shocks, but there's one asset that protects you from internal risks: the betrayal of partners or the loss of key relationships. That brings us to our final level, human capital. For level 9, human capital. Old money invests $2 million in an education not for the diploma, but for the people your child sits next to at dinner. At La Rose in Switzerland, the world's most expensive school, tuition is about $145,000 a year. In the game of generational wealth, the right phone number is worth more than the right degree. Trust is pre-established. This introduction alone is worth more than the $2 million spent on education because it bypasses the entire credentialing ladder. One introduction can unlock a $500 million partnership that a new money entrepreneur would spend a decade trying to find. Reputation is the only asset that a court can't liquidate. Dynasties build a bank of social favors by becoming connectors. They introduce people who can help each other without asking for a fee today, knowing they can call in that favor 10 years from now. It is the ultimate unfair advantage, and they guard their reputation more fiercely than their bank accounts. The family office. To manage this massive complexity, old money builds a family office. This is not a department at a bank. It is a private firm that works for only one family. It employs its own lawyers, tax experts, and investment analysts whose only job is to protect the family organism. You usually need about $100 million in liquid assets to justify the $1 million to $3 million annual overhead. The family office acts as an internal family bank. This is the secret to how they keep the next generation from failing. If an heir wants to buy a home or start a company, the office lends them the money at the IRS-mandated applicable federal rate, usually around 5%. This is far below what a commercial bank would charge. More importantly, it keeps the interest inside the family. The family office vets the heir's business plan like a real venture capital firm. They teach the next generation financial discipline and accountability while ensuring the family capital never leaks out to an external bank. It is a closed-loop system of financial self-sufficiency. 8. Family governance. But even a family office can't save a family that is fighting. The steering wheel of the fortune is governance. The most successful dynasties have a written family constitution. Without rules, you get entitled heirs who squander everything. Look at the Vanderbilts again. At one point, 120 family members attended a reunion, and not one was a millionaire. They started with the assets, but they lacked the rules to keep them. They mistook a massive fortune for an infinite. A family constitution might mandate that an heir has to work a normal job for 5 years before they can touch their inheritance. It might require them to reach a specific educational milestone. It turns a group of relatives into an institutional legacy. It sets the rules of the game so that the wealth serves the family, rather than the family being destroyed by the wealth. The dynastic mindset. There is a common thread through all 9 levels, the rejection of anything that can be diluted. Old money seeks the irreproducible. You cannot manufacture another Fifth Avenue. You cannot print more water rights. You cannot forge a 500-year-old reputation. They understand that every time an asset is sold, the compounding machine is interrupted, so they hold for generations, allowing 7% annual growth to become billion over a century. This is the power of inaction. In a world of high-frequency trading and 24-hour news cycle, their greatest edge is the ability to do nothing. They do not trade, they occupy, and they do it all in the shadows. Through anonymous LLCs and offshore trusts, they make sure no one knows how much they really own. Visibility is a liability. By remaining invisible, they remain untargeted by litigation or political shifts. This is the paradox of wealth. The more you try to make money, the less you keep. The one decision. So what's the one decision that makes all 9 levels work? Never sell. That's it. The Grosvenors made that choice in 1677 and repeated it for 348 years. Every time they could have cashed out during wars, depressions, family disputes, they didn't. They held. And that single decision is worth billions today. Because here's the secret. Wealth isn't built by the brilliant moves you make. It's built by the stupid move you don't make. Every time you sell, you pay taxes and fees, and you lose future growth. Old money's greatest weapon isn't intelligence, it's patience. So, the Grosvenors chose permanence. That choice is yours to make today. Build for the marathon, not the sprint. Own the irreproducible. Outlast the trend. You are the temporary guardian of a legacy that must be built for those who come after you. This is Cathedral Thinking. You lay the stones today so your grandchildren can see the spire. The secrets of old money are hidden in plain sight. They win because they outlast. They don't try to beat the market, they try to be the market. The sprinters are already out of breath. The marathoners are just getting started. So, next week I'm revealing the actual 47-page family constitution that prevented one dynasty from losing $800 million. It includes the exact clause that saved them when one heir tried to liquidate everything. Click subscribe. This is the video that will change how you think about legacy.